Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about moms who really do know best.
And reality stars who go to summer camp.
The two genders?
We always try to make everything a gender thing, and it's just like not quite working.
There's going to be gender. This whole podcast is going to smack of gender, but not the intro.
Not the intro. Also, just want to warn everyone that I am currently recording from London, and though I did bring all of my equipment, as per usual, not everything was able to be set up perfectly. So if you hear any quality issues or sense my lack of camera quality, then I am so sorry. I really, really tried. I brought everything.
Emma is ready. She's down and dirty to podcast from anywhere in the world, but it does present some challenges.
So today we're going to be diving back into the latest episode of Farmer Wants a Wife and also talking about Netflix's new crossover competition show, Battle Camp. These crossover shows, they're everywhere.
They have figured out that like they can keep the reality stars happy and fed and paid, and they can keep the relentless content mill filled. Like people
Exactly.
they need new content streaming at all times. And this is
the people are us.
a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. We just put out an episode on the final season of You, the Netflix thriller You, not you personally, on Rich Text. You can find that at claireandemma.substack.com. And big news, we're having a 10-year anniversary live show on June 26th at City Winery in New York. So get your tickets. You can find them at the City Winery website. You can find a link on our website. And we'd love to see you there.
We would. It's going to be super fun. We're going to have some really fun guests. I cannot wait.
Me neither. I love a live show. And this is going to be a historic occasion. It should be the first live show that we ever do at which I am not pregnant.
So what Claire is saying is she will be wasted.
Yeah, what I'm saying
Just
is
tanked.
I'm a little worried that I will somehow be pregnant. No, I will be drinking heavily.
That's
okay.
what happens. It's immaculate conception by way of
there's
live
nothing
show.
I can do about it. The live show, it has a powerful energy. Okay, so let's talk about Farmer Wants a Wife, episode 6. The Farmer Wants a Mommy episode.
Oh my God.
These farmers want mommies so bad. And they
And
want
they're
their
like,
mommy to pick the new mommy for them. They're like, Mommy, you know how to be my mommy the best. Can you pick a new mommy for me?
They're like, I want to keep my one mommy, and then I want a sex mommy too.
Yeah. Does my mommy know what kind of second sex mommy I need? Let's find out. So Kimberly Williams Paisley welcomes us to a vast field at the beginning of the episode. She's always just wandering in a field. She's always wearing the kind of dress that the pioneer woman would wear while she's like baking an apple pie. It's like full sleeve, buttoned up to the neck.
I love it because I feel like Kimberly Williams Paisley is taking on the role of pseudo trad wife for this job, but it's just her job. Like she's in a costume.
Yeah, and it's her job. She's an actress.
Yeah,
She's
right,
an actress.
exactly.
She's in a costume. She's married to a celebrity. And she's like, what would a trad wife wear when she's wandering in a field? Obviously this dress. And if I were going to pick something to wear while wandering in a field, I would also pick a dress with puffy sleeves. So #relatable.
Like, fair enough.
And she tells us that this episode will tell us if the saying is really true. Does mom really know best? And yeah,
if you're
we
Farmer
do.
John, the answer is yes.
I also plan to pick my son's future partners because
I thought that was one of the perks of being a boy mom.
yeah, you're like the number one woman in their life forever, and you're in charge of the other women that they choose to have in their life. Like you're the top of the pecking order. So let's start on Matt's farm. Matt is our Californian exotic fruit and avocado farmer who is sort of just like playing dead. He's like, maybe if I lie real still, no one will notice that I'm here.
Oh, yeah. No, he's like hoping that the women will just forget he's there because they're having so much fun. And then he's like, and then I'll never have to make out with any of them.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to choose any of these women. So he makes avocado toast with his four ladies and reflects on his date with Alexandra last week. He had fun. She was very sweet, but maybe too sweet. He likes a woman who can push him and challenge him. The camera lingers on Haley. Now she's a pusher.
At this point, Matt lets us know that he has realized that all of the women living in his home are extremely annoyed with him. He's like, I'm sensing that I'm maybe not giving them enough.
Yeah. He's like, I'm giving them nothing. And it turns out they're not satisfied with that.
It's
but
so weird.
It's time for him to start like doing literally anything. We see him like flirting a little bit with Chelsea, who has barely spoken, and I did not know her name. She's like teasing him about his toast being pale and floppy.
I was like, is this a running joke that we simply just have not been treated
Yeah.
to? Wow, things are getting wild in Farmer Matt's house.
They've all been mocking each other about their toast. And I just have to say that having excessively floppy toast is just a little too on the nose as a metaphor with what's going on with Matt's season. But she's
Matt
like,
is like the biggest fail of this season of Farmer Wants a Wife.
I mean, he's so handsome. His farm is gorgeous and like off the beaten path in terms of, as we've talked about, the stereotypes of American farming. And he has no charisma.
No, I now understand that they were like, will it just be enough that he's incredibly handsome and has like gorgeous vistas?
I mean, they have to pick 4 farmers every season. Like they're going to
It's
run out of
hard.
extremely
It's hard. And
charismatic, eligible ones.
They're doing an amazing job compared
Yeah.
to past seasons. So I'll
But
give them this one.
Chelsea's like, I'm falling for Matt.
No, you're not,
okay.
Chelsea.
No, you're not. That you're all just like so desperate to be the first woman that he seems legitimately interested in.
He still hasn't kissed anyone.
Yeah. On Colton's farm, the women are grooming horses while Zoe tells them about her date, including that Colton got her a necklace. She seems to be saying that it's like a style that she normally wouldn't wear, and she's going to have to like figure out how to style it. And I was like, that was my first thought on seeing the necklace as well.
It's terrible.
It's not for me. But that's how it is when you have a new boyfriend and he tries to buy you jewelry.
You know
And
what?
you're just
That's
like,
true.
thank
That's
you so
actually
much.
a very common problem with men and jewelry. So
Yeah. You're like, what made you think I would like this? Have we never met before? Okay, well, we'll try again next year. We see Colton wearing a Canadian tuxedo and sort of walking alone in slow-mo. They just wanted to get some glamour shots of him, I guess. Worked for me because I have a soft spot for Colton.
I know. And he realizes that he fucked up by not kissing Zoe.
Mm-hmm. But he also wants to get to know Bailey and Keely better. And also there's a 4th woman here whom he doesn't mention, and I'm not sure who she is, and I don't remember her name. So that seems bad for her.
Yeah. Can't say I recall her either.
I'm like, why is she still here if you can't even bring yourself to say that you still want to get to know her at this point? On John's farm, he's flirting. And what does flirting mean for John? It means he is literally throwing a hen at one of the women while they work in the chicken coop.
John shouldn't be allowed to date.
What is he doing? Is this playful? It's like you playfully throw a little bit of flour at each other's noses when you're making muffins. Oh, we're in a chicken coop, so I'll playfully throw a hen at her. Hens have feelings, John.
I mean, first of all, animal cruelty. Second of all, I just don't. John is like no longer doing it for me now that Samantha has gone. What I liked about him was his ability to volley with a strong personality.
Yeah, that was the whole season for John, unfortunately. Like maybe he'll go on and have a fruitful and productive season, but as a viewer, the season is over.
Yeah, I'm over him.
He reflects that he had fun with Kaylee on their date, and then he says, but I don't know if I can meet her eye to eye on all that emotional stuff.
Oh,
and
my
goes on to clarify that he means like having them.
Feelings. Yeah, no, he's like, I don't really do that. I have emotions.
Yeah, she like has so many feelings. And
this
I
man
don't.
should not be allowed to date. And he's like looking around. He's like, oh, that one over there, she laughs a lot and like doesn't need anything from me. I love that. It just feels like we're a great match.
Yeah, that's Lily, who is getting stuck in the hen house and doing some physical pratfalls for John. And he loves that. He's like, she's beautiful. And I like that she's secure in herself, which seems to me not like Haley, who is sad about never having been properly loved by a man.
Oh yeah, no.
Desperate,
He's like,
insecure.
Lily seems like a woman who may never have needs, and that's ideal for me.
Yeah, she is secure in herself. She has everything that she needs. I would never need to provide anything or be someone she could rely on, which I love. He also likes Claire and her wit. And I also like Claire and her wit, but
She
I don't know the one on the show. I mean
Yeah.
more me personally.
I'm sorry. Is this the I forget. Is this the same person that literally couldn't string a sentence together with his friends?
I don't remember anything from him from them meeting his friends except for Samantha being like, I hate farms, I'll never live on one. I love to shop and I'm in charge. Deal with it. That's all I remember.
I was like, I'm pretty sure it was Claire,
might
and
have
she
been.
does seem to have found a personality.
Well, this makes sense because he starts being like, you're like a butterfly who's emerged from her cocoon now that you're not like feeling so shy anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never seen this woman before in my life. Was she literally in a cocoon? I don't recognize her.
I mean, essentially, like, this is the woman who quite literally said nothing except heart.
Except heart.
She's like, I want a relationship with love.
Oh, no, that is the woman who got sent home.
Oh, she did get sent home. This is a
Yeah.
new woman. I've never seen this woman.
No, now that you've said that, I remember that. That
Okay,
was
that
the
makes
nanny
that was the
got sent
that was the
home.
other brunette.
So yes, that is Claire, the second brunette.
I apologize. I
two.
literally
No,
erased a
no,
whole
there's
brunette.
one. Yeah, well, he has two kinds of women on the farm: goofy blondes
And women,
shy
one
brunettes.
woman with feelings.
And well, she's also goofy when she's not having feelings. That's why he thought she showed promise. So John is like teasing Claire for flopping her arms during hugs, and he has to show her by hugging her many times,
so
and the other women
jealous.
look on jealously. But it's like, don't worry, he's just telling her that she's really bad at hugging, which,
Yeah, is that what you really want?
you know, seems like a problem. I like to be, known as a good hugger.
Same. I take
in my
pride in it,
relationship.
actually.
At Jay's farm, Julia and Tiana are making breakfast together and like having a bonding moment,
It's
which
so
is
nice.
really heartening because the
I
drama
know.
was making
I was
me
really
sad.
glad to see that these two had made nice. It feels like all of the women were so frustrated at Tiana. And then once they said their piece and they saw like how deeply it upset her, they were like, okay, it's time to get over this.
Yeah. Yeah. Julia was like, well, she did call me a hoe, but I don't enjoy seeing her cry. Like, I think that they really thought of her as a quite cold-blooded person, and they're starting
I
to
think you're
doubt
right.
that maybe. And they're going to give her a second chance to build a bridge. So they're preparing eggs, and meanwhile, Jay is feeling a little worried about Julia for another reason, which is that she has said that she would, love
hate
living
it.
on a farm, but she would hate it, and that's like quite obvious. He's like, her actions are not living up to what she's saying about how much she loves being on the farm. For example, she won't touch anything or be around any of the animals. And she
I'm
keeps
obsessed.
saying like, ew, I hate this.
Truly. I love it. It's hilarious.
And he legitimately is like, I'm going to have them scoop
Yeah, and
poop
Julia's
to
like,
test Julia.
obviously,
like
I
in almost
won't
as many
be
words.
doing that.
Right. She's like, I simply won't. She takes the shovel and she keeps being like, I'm not shoveling shit. I'm not. She's like, I feel like the particles
She's like,
are flying
I'm
on us and we're going to get some
from Malibu.
disease. I wasn't born in I'm from Malibu. I wasn't born in Malibu to come shovel shit. Geography is destiny. My destiny is to be on a beach looking hot. Maybe with a cowboy
I
hat
think
on,
this
maybe
is
not.
actually why
but
Tiana
definitely not
and
shoveling
Julia were
shit.
able to make up, because both of them are like, we don't like farm life and we don't really like Jay. So
They're like, why are we
Yeah.
here? We're two hotties. We don't need to be on a farm shoveling shit with this guy who's not paying attention to us. She's like complaining about the smell of the poop, and he's like, doesn't your poop have a smell? And she says, I don't poop.
She's a real woman.
Commitment. Real women don't poop. It just evaporates. Jay is impressed by how much Grace scoops, but he calls Julia the one scoop wonder. And of course, we all know that there are a few ways into the men's hearts: being hot, being fun, and doing the most farm work. And Grace has doing the most farm work.
I feel like Grace
right
is
now.
a shoo-in.
Julia has only.
Yeah.
Well, she was the first date. Like, I feel like he really saw, and they're both like soft spoken. I feel like he really saw like an affinity with her. Yeah. The farmers all get letters telling them that their moms are coming to help. Each mom picked one woman from a pool of options to meet the farmer and potentially join the farm. And the letter says that they should eliminate one of the others tonight if they bring this new woman home. So the women are all like at the house freaking out while each farmer drives off and like kind of like rallying each other and being like, if he dares to bring another woman into this house, like, doesn't he know what he's got in the four of us? We're the four most amazing women in the world. If he brings another woman home, that will really show that he's just like
And
a
it's
man.
like, well,
he's thinking with his dick.
This is a reality TV show.
I mean, I'm also like, you really think that any man should want
One
to
of
marry
3 random women.
one of 3 women who happen to be in front of him? Like, I personally, that's just not how I view dating. Like, if you really are like, date all the women and be sure it's me, then one more woman is
That's
not going to
very
threaten
true.
that. Like, why is he obligated to spend the rest of his life with one of the 3 of you because you're the ones who are here right
they got there
now?
first.
And it would be an insult
okay?
to you.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we will discuss the results of mommies picking sex mommies.
Can you keep up? I like love.
And we're back. So the women are all pretty upset, waiting for the men to go on their dates and come home. It seems to me like Jay's women are particularly heated. Tiana and Julia are both like, I don't know what he's looking for. If he comes back with another woman, like, there's going to be a problem. We're going to need to have a conversation. And Tiana points out that he hasn't even really spent one-on-one time with her. So why would he bring in a new woman? And Grace is like, yeah, that would be really hard for you. Look at them.
It's beautiful.
They're doing diplomacy. They're building bridges. Claire expresses to John that they're going to feel like he's not into them if he brings another woman back. And he's like, okay. But basically, they're all having this thought. They just are expressing it in different degrees of directness. Like, if he wants to bring a new woman home, it will show that he's like immature and he just wants a shiny new object to like drool over. And if he is mature and makes good decisions, he will marry one of the 3 or 4 of them. Yes. Time to meet the boy moms. So this is where the episode for me really took a turn into like disturbing pronatalist ideology.
This was so chilling. Like, again,
So
a
grim.
show for our current moment in all the worst ways.
Yeah, like these are women who would get medals for their services to the nation and producing.
Oh yeah, this is like the
offspring.
MAGA-ist MAGA. Like, all of these boys' moms are just trying to find them the best baby machine Zoom can identify.
Yeah. And the men keep being like, oh yeah, I think that 7 kids sounds great. I mean, my siblings and I loved it.
7
like,
kids
oh, boy.
always sounds great to a conservative man because he's like, I don't have to do anything.
Well, you have to.
Bone.
Yes. You have to provide.
I mean, if you're John, you literally just have generational wealth. So he's like, it's truly not an issue.
You have
for
generational wealth. It helps a little bit. John is an interesting one because he comes from a huge
and he wants a huge family.
Like with right. I mean, I looked into his family a little bit, and we have a friend in St. Louis who I talked to a little bit about this season, and he comes from a family that's quite well known, that has like a long history in St. Louis, very wealthy. And when you look at like the obituaries, it's like, and his 6 children. And his six children apiece.
Yeah, it's
like they are so many
very
children.
clear why
it's a
John
huge
is like
family.
minimum 6 kids. I will not accept anything less. Which I was like, maybe you should share this with the class. Oh, okay, John.
Right. Why are we just learning this now, John? Like, you do not come across as someone who wants at least 6 kids. Let's put it that way. Like, I'm not shocked, but I wouldn't assume it either. I would definitely let the ladies know that they're in for 6 to 10 kids, should they choose to marry you. But then when I learned more about his family, I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. He just thinks it's normal because everyone he's related to has 6 kids. And why not? Because his family is also super wealthy and has been for generations.
Is the leader of his family. So he decides.
Well, the interesting thing that we learn about gender from this episode is that the man decides, but if you're lucky enough to be a boy mom, then eventually you can decide, because your son, the new patriarch, will just obviously do whatever you say because mommy knows best. So the only path to any sort of power is sons. By bearing sons. And it's very conservative coded, like in every way. And I struggled to articulate it at first because, I think everyone mostly loves their mom if they had a good mom. Like, you don't have to be a conservative to be like, my mom is the best. But the way that they talk about their mamas and their mamas talk about them,
there's like
has these subtle little
to it that made
markers.
Me feel really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I do think, at least in the circles I'm a part of, there is a lot of autonomy often centered when in discussions of parenthood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, my job is to, not mine personally, but like your job is to raise children in a way that they can go forth and be like productive, full members of society, do good in the world, and like create whatever family structure they so choose. That is not the vibe in these parental relationships. It's very much like, mama knows best. I have to find a lady in my own image. My son doesn't really know what he wants. So I'm going to find a woman that I think he'll find attractive and also who aligns with like my values. Yeah, it's very
like
odd.
a Trojan horse. Like, she's his exact physical type, but also
no, sex mommy. It is fully sex mommy.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and I mean it all traces back, I guess, to like this very like hierarchical sense of the family that is deeply conservative. That this idea that like men are in charge of the whole family. Underneath them is the wife and mother who is in charge
the umbrellas
of the children.
graphic.
The children are like yes, exactly. Like, the children are ruled over and like possessed by the parents. What they do reflects on the parents. They're like assets to the parents. And that's kind of the way that like they're saying that these moms are talking about their sons. Like, oh, that's my John is this way, and I'm gonna find him the right woman for him to, have the kind of life that I think he should have. And yeah, it's just not the way that you would see it talked about.
But these men are fucking thrilled. They're like, my mom's gonna find the best sex mommy for me. And John is up first, and John's mom is like, I pick someone who is energetic, who she thinks will, quote, jibe well with my John. And John is excited about this lady. because she is the perfect mix of hot, cosmopolitan, but deeply conservative and ready to pump out babies and basically give up her career for John.
She kind of is.
Yeah, because
like
her
a female
vibes are
John.
not immediately full trad wife, right? She's like, I've studied in Italy. I'm a private chef. I like love to travel. I love to garden. I love to do all these things. And then she's like, but of course,
Yeah.
it is my job to be led and protected by my husband. And I am open to as many children as you would like to have, minimum 4.
Yeah, and this is when John says his minimum is 6. 6. Your minimum is 6, and you haven't mentioned this, as far as I can tell, to any of the women who are currently vying to put their body through 6 or more
Samantha
pregnancies.
knew.
Yeah, I don't see Samantha having minimum 6 kids. Yeah, 100, and she also has that like flashy like personality, like huge smile, like definitely comes across as quite distinct and charismatic on
100%.
camera.
She popped.
Like she, like John, has that quality.
They're well
and so they
matched.
are kind of,
They're
they
well
seem like a
matched. It
set
made sense
already.
to me.
They could be siblings.
Uh,
Yeah, and her dream is just to like come home and cook for her husband, and then she's like, and then he
Oh my
can
God.
clean, and then she laughs and is like, just kidding, and he's like, well, I liked what you said
He
until
seems
that.
legitimately horrified at the idea that when his wife, a private chef, makes him gourmet meals, he would have to do a dish. He's like, obviously that's your job. And she's like, haha, so true. I was just so disturbed.
Who's going to be taking care of the 6
She's
children
going to do that
while
too,
she's
Claire.
doing all of
John
this
has no
stuff?
idea how much labor anything requires. He's a 25-year-old dude
Yeah.
who lives with his mommy. This man doesn't do
This is
laundry.
what made me
I
crazy
guarantee
about this
you.
episode. This is all they're selling a fantasy of traditional motherhood that is so dominant on the right now, that is being pushed so hard. They're
Yep.
putting out policies to
maybe
promote this
$5,000.
kind of lifestyle, and they're selling it as this idyllic lifestyle. And when one day you'll have these children who adore you because you had this beautiful life of picking herbs in the garden and making gourmet meals, and you had 6 beautiful children who think that you are just like God on earth because you are the perfect mother. And you can see the myth making in action. That, I mean, this is like the conservative way of valuing motherhood. You're going to get this informal status and influence that comes to you because you did all of this onerous, unpaid labor to bear and care for large numbers of white children in like an
No, this is
like a
like
wealthy or upper class
Farmer
or upper
John
middle class
is a
family.
and
that is going to be your Oh, he absolutely, and like his dream for his future
yes
is what they want everyone to want for the future,
White
as
and
long as
wealthy.
they are like white and wealthy or middle class. Like they want a certain kind of person to aspire to this lifestyle and to take on that like psychic wage of thinking, oh, my children will listen to me and they'll respect me, and like I will have power through my sons, and I'll have power through my husband because I'm putting all of my time and effort into the domestic sphere. That's going to compensate for any autonomy, any career I've given up, any material support that I don't have from society. I'm going to get this like respect, like so much respect and adoration for the hard work that I've done as a mother. And that's what they're offering. They're like, we'll give you a medal. Your sons will love you more than they ever loved their wife. Like that's your reward.
So let's talk about Matt's mom. Matt's mom is out here trying to
Oh,
find
God, this was
someone
worse
who,
somehow.
quote, likes to take care of herself by eating well and exercising. Like Matt's mom might as well just like be holding up a sign that's like, no fatties need apply. Like she is like enforcing body standards overtly on her son's future mate. This is like so bizarre to me.
It was odd to me because I think that's one thing that you can kind of count on your son to be paying attention to. Right?
Also,
So,
like, lady, you're on a reality show.
so she's literally like, one thing I got to make sure is that he's dating a
She's like, I'm
conventional
very
hottie.
concerned.
I'm like, they're all going to be hot. They're all going to probably just like eat
Also,
collagen
oh
and
my
seaweed
God,
shakes
there is
and
such a like
exercise 15
maha
times a week.
undertone to all of this. Like, there is a lot of talk about like clean eating, not putting bad things into
Right.
the diet, and you're just like, oh no, there have been some really
Yeah.
These women are watching a dark side of TikTok.
Well, it's interesting because Amanda, the woman she picks, who is indeed blonde, beautiful, and fit, is a pharmaceutical sales rep.
I thought
And I'm like,
pharmaceuticals were bad.
Is she
Yeah, I
pushing
thought it
those
was bad.
vaccines? Maybe she's flex on the Maha side of things. Maybe Matt's mom is open to some conventional medicine. Amanda seems pretty quiet. She's like, I'm mostly kind of shy, which I thought was interesting because this is the kind of woman he's explicitly said.
Well, that's
he
why
doesn't
Matt did not
want.
bring anyone back. He's like, this woman is fine, and I have a bunch of other fine women. Why do I need like a sixth or whatever?
Right. Yeah, I feel like his mom was like, he needs someone just like quiet and
godly.
pliant and supportive. And he's like, I am quiet and pliant and supportive. So I need someone to be in
Exactly.
charge in my home, and it won't be me. He asks Amanda how many kids she wants, and she says, as many as God will allow me to have.
I was
She's
aghast.
quiver. It takes a lot to shock. Shock
You're not
is
shocked.
hard, is rough. I'm not shocked. It takes a lot to make me feel freaked out with like people's
Children.
desires to have a lot of kids, because you want what you want. And like, I think sometimes on the left, we have a tendency to be like, well, how many is the rational number of kids to have? I'm going to do my budget and this and that. And I feel like I approached it with much more of like a, do I feel like I want another kid sort of mindset? And that makes sense to me. I think it's really hard to want a kid and then rationalize yourself out of it. However, conversation after conversation of people just being like, how many kids? How many is possible? How many pregnancies can one uterus hold? Like 6 at least. Like, I'd love to field a football team.
It's giving
like, I was
ballerina
getting a
farm.
little overwhelmed.
It's giving you will be collapsing from
Yeah.
exhaustion, and your husband will think it's a cute little anecdote. Like, even when you're generationally
Yes.
wealthy. But yeah.
And again, it's the fantasy that it's selling, which is like, look at these beautiful, sweet women who are desperate to have as many babies as possible. Wouldn't you be so beautiful and lovable if you were just like her? Maybe you should have as many babies as God will allow you to have and get highlights. You know, that could be
Highlights and the
that could be
conservative
your life.
wave. That's all you need.
And meanwhile, on Jay's date, Jay's mom picked a nice young lady who values faith and family and values giving back to the community, just like Jay. And this was my favorite, I think,
agree.
pick.
I mean,
I thought this was really a good pick.
Rissa is a great pick. First of all, she is stunning. She has a big, bold personality, which I think Jay needs because he's so quiet.
Yeah.
And she also just like seems game. She's excited to be there.
Yeah. And I like that her personality seems like the right balance to draw him
Overpowering
out
him.
without
Yeah, it's
overwhelming
true.
him, which I think is, yeah, like he livens up around her. And he says the best thing Rissa has going for her is that his mom picked her. Imagine on your wedding day, you're like, well, I love you because
I would be unwell
my mom picked me.
if that was the vows.
My mom picked you. Yeah. I mean, I was like, what about the fact that she's like
Stunning and has a great
stunning
personality and
and
you're having a lot of fun together.
has a great personality. No, my mom picked her, so I know that she's good. She asked how many kids he wants. Did they make them all?
Honestly, yes. Honestly, I think that this was a directive.
It's crazy.
This is like an explicitly pronatalist show. But Jay gives like
I completely agree. I think they
Yes.
did like a theme episode around motherhood. They were like, your moms are here and they
Yes.
want to know how many
Yes.
babies.
it's just so
Their
interesting to
future
me, this
daughter-in-law
idea
is
that
going
is
to
being
have.
implied here, that like the job of a mother once they have raised an adult child is to ensure that they like pump out as many offspring as possible. Like I feel like as a mother, you might have other desires for your children other than like how many how often can they impregnate their future wife.
Well, think about it this way. They worked hard to have their 6 to 10 kids and to homeschool all of them lovingly and with a firm hand. And what, now their genetic lineage is just going to stop because their kids want to go travel the world and go do DJ sets
Absolutely
in Ibiza?
not.
Like, that's crazy. They need to make sure that their line
I feel like
continues.
Jay and Rissa had a more reasonable conversation.
Yeah, they have a
Yeah.
like a less extreme view of family size. He says he wants 2 kids, and 3 could also be a good number, maybe
He's
more.
like, let's
but like,
start with 2
let's
to
see
3.
how it
And then
goes.
she says she wants 3, and she's basically like, I'd go up to 5. This is a very different vibe than minimum 6, no compromising.
yeah, I literally am part of the Quiverful movement. Yeah, this is more of a normal conversation that made sense to me. It was hard for me to watch this episode because my son, now that he's almost 2 years old, I'm having extreme baby fever. And I was like, yeah,
You're
5
like,
kids sounds great. Let's
I don't
do
have
it.
a baby anymore. My baby's not a baby.
Yeah, where's my new baby? Who's baby now? And then Rissa says she's adventurous and she likes hiking, and he's like, do you like tree hugging? And she's like, I don't know
what
about
the
all
fuck
that.
Jay is talking about. Like
What?
70% of the time. I don't know what
What is
anyone's
she
talking
talking
about on this date,
about?
but they do seem to have good chemistry.
But like tree hugging mostly just seems
No,
like
I don't
a
think
term for
that he
environmentalism.
knows what that means.
Does he think that it means there are people who are like, I love to go out and hug trees as a hobby?
Like,
But she seems
Claire.
to feel the same. She's
Claire,
like, yeah, no,
they-
I don't like tree
neither of them
hugging.
are aware of what the term
What are they
means.
talking about?
and they're not talking about anything.
It doesn't seem like they do. But they seem
very
convinced
clear
that
to
it
the
means
other person.
something
Well, exactly. Yes.
else. Right. But she does seem down to farm, and he's like, wow, that puts you above at least one and possibly
No,
all of the
Grace
women I
is
have back in
allegedly
my
down.
farm. Colton's mom is my favorite. No, Colton's mom says kind of the most explicitly that she's not that interested in picking a wife for her
Thank
son,
you.
which I love. She's like, I usually don't set him up because he has his criteria, and I usually pick
she's like,
something that's
she's like, the weird
opposite."
thing is,
So she's like,
I'm
I just
not
don't
my
get involved.
son. So a woman that I'm into might not be a woman he's into. So weird how that works.
Go figure. And so she picked someone that she clearly thought would kind of be
Yeah.
of interest to Colton. A beautiful tattooed blonde named Kate, who's from Indiana and lives in Nashville. And they have
They
a
do.
good chemistry right off the bat. He asks if she's ridden a horse, and she says she can ride. And he says they're like the Lord's
Colton.
Uber. And she's like, oh, I love his humor. He's so funny. I love this idea that they're like the Lord's Uber. It just doesn't mean anything except that you can ride a
Correct.
horse, much like you would ride in an Uber.
I'm
And
like, horses
a human didn't build a
don't
horse.
show up at your door ready to take you to the airport. So
Right. Right. Well, it's like you could say they're like the Lord's motorcycle, but that wouldn't be funny. You have to make it the Lord's Uber to be a little more unexpected and be funny, but it no longer is accurate. It doesn't mean anything. I still love Colton. She's in corporate HR, and she's like seeming to talk around a little bit whether she would be ready to leave
Yeah.
that and move to a farm. But ultimately, it seems like tentatively, yes. She's like, I'm setting myself up for when it's time for me to go have a family. And that's what I really want. And Colton tells her he already has a son. And he
she's
knows
like,
that's
no,
a turn
I'm
on
down.
for some women, which
Love
is sad.
that.
And yeah. And he's like, great, I want more kids. And she's like, great. So do the farmers decide to bring these
Half
women
and
back
half.
to the farm? Well, half and half. John does bring Juliana back, obviously. She's literally him with boobs and can speak Italian.
And we'll never make him do a dish.
And the women back at the farm are devastated. Kaylee rushes out when he introduces Juliana.
Also, you're just like, this is going to be the end
And-
of Kaylee, obviously, because John already doesn't like that she has feelings. And now she's having more feelings.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kaylee was
100%.
doomed, to be honest, already. And this was almost just a way to push that to its logical conclusion earlier. Because once he figured out she had feelings, he was never going to put himself in a position where he would have to take care of her feelings. And so she cries and she's like, I just don't understand when it's enough. And he's like, well, it's not about that. There's just something there with Juliana. It wouldn't be fair to all of you. Because I would always wonder what
on
if.
this one thing, I do agree with you.
I agree too. She apologizes for crying and he says that's who Kaylee is. Which sounds like it's saying that's okay that you're crying, but actually it's him identifying you're always crying and I don't like that.
And I hate
like,
it.
This is
actually.
who you are. And FYI, not for me. Colton comes inside when he returns, closes the door. All the women are watching, and he says, just stay out here a minute.
I loved
out
this.
the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's messing with them. He asks if they want to meet the girl, and then he's like, I'm just messing with you. And he tells the camera, I'm dumb, but I'm not an idiot. He doesn't want to jeopardize
I
what
love
he has with the current
Colton.
women.
Again, I don't think it's bad to bring
kind of
a new
do
woman
too.
back, but he's just, I don't know. I think he genuinely really,
He's just
and he
likable.
cares
I
about the
don't know what it
well-being
is.
of the women that he's been spending time with.
Yeah, and it's interesting juxtaposition to John. I don't think that Colton feels it's a burden to have to care a little bit about the feelings of the women. Plus, he already has a blonde.
Those
a brunette,
are
and a
all the
redhead,
kinds
and
of
that
women.
completes
So,
his
like, you
set.
don't need to add to your collection.
All the kinds of women. But Hope is actually a little put off by this little goof. She's like, I'm so over his nonchalantness. When he's joking around, I wonder if we're on the same page. So Hope is doomed because that's who Colton is. That's his secret sauce.
I'm like, you just want someone who's earnest 100% of the time. That is my actual nightmare.
Yeah, no, they're not a match. She's the one that he forgot about.
That
Hope.
tracks.
That must be the one that he didn't say
he doesn't.
wanted to get to know better.
I think they're
earlier.
gonna, part
And
ways.
she doesn't want to get to know him. Matt, meanwhile, struggles with the decision because Amanda's gorgeous. She checks all the boxes. She's gorgeous, for example, and also wants many children. But the other girls are also gorgeous. So what are you going to do?
They're like gonna do a mutiny. They're like, this man is useless.
He hasn't sent anyone home.
I know. Rachel had to
He hasn't sent
self-eliminate.
anyone home. Rachel left on her own. Like, truly, these at first they're like, yay, you're not sending anyone home. And then almost immediately they start to be like, are we trapped here? Like, can we leave? Like,
Haley is like packing
never
her bags.
going to be
She's like,
free.
look, this is the last straw. If he brings another person back to stay here indefinitely, I'm out.
and this is like the narrative that just like men bring women back, new women back, continues because Jordan is like, he's a man. He's just going to
I also think they're
That's
just
what men
like,
do. He's going to bring back a new woman.
what I think that they observed correctly is that all of them are like, well, he'll obviously bring her back because he doesn't like to reject anyone and he doesn't like to make decisions.
Yeah, they have a
They
very
do.
sharp
It's
read
so
on that.
devastating.
But I think that what's interesting here is that Matt is also aware that they are fed up. And he's like, the easiest person to eliminate is the
Right.
person who isn't in the house yet. I would rather not bring her back than have to
Exactly. He's
send
like, I
someone
will have to
home.
send someone home at some point. So why not this lady?
Why not the person who can ask the least of me, who can expect the least, who I've only had one conversation with? She sounds like the perfect person to send home. And so he comes back and he tells the women that things have gotten serious and he couldn't imagine bringing someone else back because he's got more than he needs here.
He does.
And he
yeah.
genuinely has way more than he needs.
He
I think he
needs
maybe
zero.
needs
He's
zero
not
women,
interested
and he
in
has
these women. I don't know if he's
4.
interested in any human beings on this earth. Like there's no evidence.
And the women are so happy. They're like, you're so decisive, Matt. Amazing work. And again, he literally just did the path of least resistance here, but okay. At Jay's farm, the women roast marshmallows and wait anxiously. And obviously, Jay returns right as they're all biting into their huge, messy s'mores. And he has with him a tall, gorgeous
stilettos
woman in
and like a
stilettos.
red
So-
mini dress.
Yeah, it's a bombshell dress. And Tiana is feeling pretty bad because he only spoke to her at the barn dance to check in.
She hasn't had any one-on-one time, and now it's like, here's a new woman who's coming back to the house, and she's just had a long date. I think she just sees the writing on the wall. She's like, it's not there for me and Jay.
Yeah, I think Jay did not want to send her home when she was clearly getting bullied. Like, he was sitting with all the women, and they were like, ugh, fuck her. And he's like,
guess it would be a
well, I hope
weird
she's
time.
okay. I no longer am interested in her romantically, but weird time to send her home. So Rissa comes in, tries to be friendly. The women are icy and silent. And Jay helpfully breaks the ice with comments such as, just crickets? Okay, then. And then he pulls Julia aside to dump her. So a real lively social vibe here.
Everyone's feeling great.
But like, Julia obviously can't stay. Like, she hates it there. Like, it's
No,
a
she's-
kindness to send Julia home at this
It is,
point.
and she's excited to go home.
But it hurts to get dumped. Like, I'm almost surprised that she didn't self-eliminate because it's so clear that she hates it,
know.
but it does hurt to get dumped. You could preempt that.
I know. She should have pulled a Rachel and just left.
Yeah, but Jay has to do it. He tells Julia that at first he saw her making an effort with the hay bales and the cows, but he just can't see her happy on the farm. He doesn't think she can either. And she doesn't deny that. She's just like, I just think that you're lucky to have me here, and you don't see that. So I'm checked out. Which is, I mean, I think that he felt good to have her there, except that he wants to marry someone who likes being on the farm, and she doesn't.
No.
This is doomed. It's doomed. But she does say, I just feel a hit to my ego, which is very honest. And I think it's interesting. I feel like the idea of admitting that your ego is hurt has become so normalized.
That's so true.
Like, I feel like it used to be an embarrassing thing to say that you are influenced by your ego. And
Is
now
thi-
people
is
are
this-
much more like,
Is this the Vile Files
is this the
impact?
influence of the Vile Files? Maybe. Or the Vile Files maybe is also part of just a general
Cultural shift.
movement.
I do wonder
Yeah.
if it's also part of like the therapization of language in general.
Exactly. Like, you need to sit with whether that's just a blow to your ego or whether it's something else that you're feeling. Like, I feel like
Exactly.
people are taking in a lot of TikTok content about this kind of thing now.
There's a lot of TikTok therapists out there.
And he tells her it's time to part ways, and she says, whatever. And so in the moment, she's like, this has taught me that I know what I want, and farm life is not for me. Correct.
Also,
I'm calling it a
Jay
win.
is boring.
Also, Jay is boring. Yes.
And then Tiana is like, well, now that the ice has been broken and someone's already gotten dumped, time for me to dump myself.
Yeah, I wonder if she thought maybe he was going to dump her. And she's like, well, fuck, gotta do it myself. So she pulls him aside and is like, I usually don't get along with the kind of guy who would do what you just did with Rissa. And I'm like, what do you, like, she's like, you're the kind of guy who brings another woman back to the farm during an agriculture themed dating
You know,
show.
that
And that's
kind of
not the kind
guy.
of guy I usually go for. I go for a different kind of guy. I feel like she's calling him a player.
Yeah, I feel like she's also just trying to tell him that she's not into him. And he's like,
Yeah.
thank God, because I'm not into you either. It is like the most mutual dumping.
Right. It's like the breakup in You've Got Mail where
Exactly.
Meg Ryan tells
Nora
Greg
Ephron
Kinnear.
would love this breakup, except it's very trad wife coded.
Jay agrees. He's like, the drama has really made me feel like the chemistry wasn't there between us, and I don't want to waste your time, even though you're beautiful and have a great personality. And she's like, no, I get it. Anything negative can be a hindrance, and I don't think I could get there even if we went on a date, so I should just go. And it ends up being very amicable, even though she was like steamed before Rissa got back. I think she pre-processed it and was just like, you know what, this isn't for me.
Exactly. And also I think seeing Julia go and be like, I'm glad to leave. She's like, you know what? Maybe I am ready to stop doing like this physical labor for some guy I'm not even interested in.
Yeah. She's like, I could be that free. I could be getting in an SUV headed back to the airport right now.
And I love that for both Tiana and Julia.
So Jay tells his remaining two original women that like his connection with them is real. He doesn't want them to question it, which is tough because he just sent home one of his original women and then another one self-eliminated and he wasn't going to send her home. And he immediately was like, yes, I agree. I don't feel it either. So yeah, I would definitely be questioning things if I were Karina or Grace.
100%.
And Karina admits that she's not feeling so good about things anymore. And he's like, well, I want to hear about that. And it seems like we are going to hear more from Karina and Grace and their anger next episode.
So before we move on to Battle Camp and take a quick break, Claire, what is our aspirational trad wife rating out of 10 milkmaid dresses? For me, this was fucking sky high. I'm like, do I just call it a 10? I think I have to call it a 10.
I don't know how much higher it could go. Like, do I preserve the 10? Because there can always be more to go. I think for me, this is a 10.
Yeah, we had Maha tendencies. We had extremely overt pronatalism. We had a very conservative view of motherhood. I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. We even had the whole like, I'm going to gather food in the garden to cook for you, and then you'll come home and
do no
eat it
dishes
with our 6+ children and do no dishes. It's a 10, folks. It's a 10.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we will get into Netflix's Battle Camp.
Can you keep up? I love it.
And we're back, and I'm excited to talk about Battle Camp.
Me too. Okay, look, I'm going to be honest. After Got to Get Out, I was not feeling excited to watch Battle Camp.
Yeah, Got to Get Out was a weird.
Like, there were things
show
about it that grew on me, but I did not really enjoy myself. This made me feel like Netflix is kind of the best in the game. Like, they know how to pick their reality stars, their reality shows, and like, this was a well-produced crossover competition show.
I agree. And like, just the sort of
budget.
cinematic value of having to press a button in a house repeatedly is so much less compared to what they put together with the wheel and the challenges and all the
literal
various
summer camp. So this is full on summer camp vibes. This is like Squid Game meets Wet Hot American Summer meets Color War in like the Parent Trap Lindsay Lohan edition.
You can tell that I don't watch a lot of summer camp movies because I was like, wow, this is like Squid Game meets Moonrise Kingdom. And then I was like,
Claire,
probably it's more like other summer camp movies than that one. That's just the one that I have seen. Anyway, it has like also an amazing pop punk soundtrack. They're so committed to the pop punk
soundtrack. The music is so intense and it really sets the tone. I was like, everything about the show is intense. They
Yeah.
call like secondary challenges punishments, which
That
is
creeped me out.
crazy.
I'm not going to say
behavior.
that things are getting more disturbing in that vein because I know Fear Factor existed and I know Survivor can be quite intense. I just have never chosen to watch any of those shows.
No, the fact that they call them punishments and not like some other word for challenge was really wild. They were like, no, this
Yeah.
is sadism.
Well, there was something about all of this that felt quite like juvenile to me. And it's not just the summer camp thing. The pop punk soundtrack, weirdly, a lot of kids' shows have pop punk music now. And I think
I
it's
didn't know
because
that.
it's people in our generation who are producing those shows now. And that is like the music of our adolescence.
Oh, that's
And it's
so funny.
and it's like it's melodic and it's actions. It sounds like action, right? It sounds exciting. And so a lot of like pop punk singers are doing the theme songs for shows like Spidey and His Amazing Friends or like Rescue Bots or whatever. So that there's
Wow.
that. It just reminds me of a lot of kids TV I'm seeing, but also like the punishment thing reminded me in a weird way of the way that as a kid when you're trying to cope with the lack of control you have over your lives, there can be like a weird complex that you get about. I remember being so into Jane Eyre and that sort of thing, like the idea of like the vulnerable like orphan child who like suffers. So Harry Potter, right? Like that feels like such a youthful fixation to me. Like I'm so defenseless and the world is against me and I'm being forced to suffer punishments by like the cruel masters or whatever. It's such a YA coded fantasy to me. And so like it felt like creepy and gothic in a way that I would have maybe been drawn to as like a 14-year-old, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. But that's kind of the fun. Like this is a show that is built for full-blown adults who want to relive some of that like youthful folly. Like
Yeah.
there's the summer camp, there's the bright saturated colors of the production, the punk music. I mean, all of the markers are there. It's like color war on steroids. So
Yeah.
the structure of the show, they are competing for $250,000 and there will only be one winner, which on a lot of Netflix shows, there's like a possibility for splitting the pot. No, they know up front, even though there are teams, there's going to be one final winner. Players are split into 3 teams of 4. And every episode, there is like a main challenge where the teams have to compete as teams. The winning team gains immunity from elimination that round. And the team that places last gets all of their names placed on this like wheel of fortune.
Wheel of Misfortune. As
Wheel
they
of
call it.
misfortune, as they call it. But it is just like the Wheel of Fortune wheel with like the tick, tick,
Yeah.
tick, tick, tick. And it has a bunch of different slots, and they're filling in the slots with names throughout each episode. So the winning team then gets to select 3 players from the bunch for a punishment challenge, like wall sits or hanging from a wall or like,
A lot of wall stuff.
submerging their faces in ice water as well as their bodies, like really unpleasant stuff. And it means that out of those 3 people, the winner does not get their name added to the wheel, but it can be bad for the winner as well because it can put a social target on their back. And the people who lose the challenge get their names up on the wheel. And the remaining spots on the wheel, this is so complicated, are all selected via voting. So there is like a popularity contest element
Yeah,
to it.
each
And,
vote
like,
gets a slot on the wheel,
Yeah,
but you can't select someone who's immune that week.
right. And so that means that people can be on the wheel multiple times.
Right. And so this is where a lot of the strategy really kicks in. Even one slot on the wheel can result in you going home that night because it's random. Like the wheel can
Yeah.
land on any of those slots, but you can game the system by voting perhaps all for the same person they are the most likely person to go home, right? And you definitely don't want your own name on there. So you're out there trying to make alliances, build relationships so that people don't want to vote for you when they're looking for someone to cast a vote for. And maybe you want to rally people to vote for the person that you want gone. But it's not like a traditional vote them off show, because you can all go hard against someone and you have no control over whether they actually go home. They could stay knowing that you hate their guts for the next round.
Yeah, it's extremely, the wheel element is extremely chaotic. And I really wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, because I was like, especially with the winner, I sort of hate that there is this like complete element of chance. On the other hand, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I ended up liking it weirdly. I don't know why, but one of the things that I liked is seeing how the contestants like metabolized the chaos that it creates, and like how they have to like psychologically cope with that. And I was like, oh, that is actually part of the challenge here, is to cope with the fact that you can't control everything, which again, for me, reinforced that sense of like, this feels more like, it reminds me of being a kid. It's like you can do the like so
everything
much
right,
and there's still someone up there making decisions that you don't understand, and that's the only thing that matters, I guess.
So each time someone gets eliminated by that wheel, the next day a new player is brought on and joins the team of the player that has been eliminated. The cast is pulled from across Netflix reality shows. We have people from dating shows like Love is Blind, The Ultimatum, Too Hot to Handle, competition shows like The Mole, The Circle, and Squid Game, and even docuseries like Selling the OC and Cheer, which made for like a really wild mix. But I thought that they selected the cast pretty well.
I think so too. And also, like, I thought that even more than the traders, the structure of the show really brought out the strengths that different people bring in to this kind of game. And I found that really interesting to watch. And like, you'll often find, and I feel this at times too, in the commentary or the conversation about these shows, like, oh, well, it's not fair that it's like this, like the people who have this kind of experience benefit so much from being popular, or they benefit so much from being really strong or whatever. But those things are all part of the game, and they all have their own skills and advantages coming in.
Like, there are, right, because having a lot of skills that are on display can also create a target on your back.
Right. And also, like, maybe it seems dumb to you that someone can go really far because they get along with people really easily because they're, like, from a dating show and they're hot and nice. But being unhateable is, like, in the description of the show. It's part of it. Like,
there's a triumph
it's a social game. Yeah.
You have to be unbeatable,
unbreakable, and unhateable. Which is funny because unbeatable and unbreakable are essentially the same thing.
I'm like, I don't.
They're trying to describe the challenges versus the punishments, but like functionally, they're pretty much the same thing.
I think they're saying like the mental game with unbreakable.
Yeah, I think probably that's true.
Yeah.
So very quickly, like, I think each of these shows that I've watched, people start to have to develop a sort of morality and a code of ethics to cope with the specific structure of the game. And it was fascinating how they incorporated the wheel into this.
Oh, yeah. The wheel is like almost like a deity by the end. They're like, well, whatever the wheel says, I have to accept.
It really felt anthropological. Like, it's like you come into a society, like there are those like sort of anthropological cliches, which are often quite, racist and sort of condescending. It's like, oh, the society, they worship the sun. How basic. How, just because they see the sun, they think it's a god. But like, we literally do watch them come to cope with the randomness of the wheel by talking about it as if it is a god. Like, it has free will. It has intentions for them. Like, it has a plan. The wheel has a plan. And I'm like, you all know that it's random, but you need to cope with this because you don't like to think that it's out of your control.
Honestly, it makes a lot of sense.
Totally. And like, that's how we have all, like, every society in like basically the human history has come up with some sort of deity to make sense of the randomness of human existence.
And I think we see in a lot of like locked box reality shows that the group will create these rules that exist only within like the moral world of the show. Like on Bachelor in Paradise, there's been like shifting rules around what it means to have like spoken on social media with someone ahead of time, right? And there's like a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. A similar sort of thing ends up happening on this show.
Yeah, because you need to have rules of morality that allow most of you to do most of the backstabbing and scheming that the game requires without turning on each other or, you know, or wobbling in your strategy. But you need them to be tight enough that you can have scapegoats. Like, you can't all just be like, we're all doing our best. They always want a scapegoat. They always want someone to point the finger at and say, like, there was a line and you stepped over it.
Yeah, and we see that happen with like someone like Trey from Squid Game, which was actually sort of surprising to me because I was like, oh, Trey seems like so likable and kind of like pretty trustworthy and capable. But no, he oversteps at one point over this like line that they've drawn, and it really costs him his game.
Yeah, it costs him pretty much everything eventually. But at the same time, you know, the difference between what he did and what some of the other contestants did was pretty cosmetic. And
Right.
the only thing that I can say to justify how much he's ostracized, not that I wish to justify it, but that is part of the social game, that he could not convince people to have a strong enough bond with him that they would be swayed by his narrative on what happened. So let's talk about the social game a little bit, because he's not the only person, obviously, who runs afoul of some rules. But the social game is honestly brutal. Like, I often felt like I was watching high schoolers because
felt sick.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the first two episodes, because Lexi, who is the sole representative of Ultimatum Queer Love, which was like a bummer.
Yeah.
She makes a fairly simple mistake in a challenge that costs her team the win, but like otherwise performs very capably and is immediately turned on and targeted by Tony, her own teammate. He's like, she's the weak link and I have to get her out.
No, it was really hard to watch. He's this very like conventionally attractive, buff, straight man, like very macho, very swaggery, and he feels like he did so much in the challenge, and she misclipped one of the flags to the boat or whatever, and it sank, and he didn't have all the flags at the end. And you can see the other people on the team being like, oh, well, anyone could have made that mistake, like, we should stick together. And Tony is not hearing it. He's smelled blood in the water, and he is ready to get rid of her in order to advance his own position. And it's successful. But, you know, that's the thing that I do like about the game is that he doesn't realize that he is sowing the seeds of his own downfall because
100%.
He's overplaying his hand.
And everyone's disgusted. They're like, he doesn't trust us. He's going to bulldoze over anyone. He's only out for himself. Like, why would we want him in this game long term?
And he is like the epitome of fragile masculinity. Like, he's so impressed with his own strength and his own stamina and his square jaw and his good looks, and he's so confident that he needs to do what it will take for him to win because that's what he deserves. When Lexi does get sent home on the wheel that night, he laughs and everyone else is like, what's wrong with you? Like, why is this funny to you? And then when Tony starts losing support in the camp, because this is the kind of guy he is and no one trusts him, they know that he will always put himself first, he ends up with his name on the wheel like 4 or 5 times, and he has a breakdown. Like,
and he also makes stupid mistakes in challenges.
When they had that challenge that was based off of knowledge of what the team traits are, like there's one person answering questions about different people on the team, and then the other 3 members of the team have to guess what that person would have answered to those questions. He just thinks that obviously Georgia from Too Hot to Handle would find him the most attractive on the team. And he insists on choosing himself. And they're all like, no, she definitely would say Lorenzo, who is much more her type, and like they're besties. And obviously she's going to say Lorenzo. And he's like, no, I'm not going to let you lose the challenge by not saying that Georgia finds me most attractive. And after that, does he say like, oh, I crossed the challenge, I should just go home?
I should just go home. Like, dude.
No, but when he ends up on the wheel, he has a breakdown. And as he was crying on camera, and I felt nothing but revulsion, I realized why there has been this taboo against masculine, about men crying. And I think that it's not because men shouldn't cry. It's because if you build all of your social status on being so strong and so fierce that like women cry, and that's why they don't have as much as I do. Like I deserve more because I'm strong and I have mental strength and muscles, and I'm just like so much better because of that. Well, then if you're going to cry the minute that someone hurts your feelings, I'm like, well, why did you deserve all that extra status for how fucking strong you are? Like your whole self-conception is predicated on how strong you are.
Right. And his entire sense of self is like, I don't have emotions. I'm cutthroat.
Right.
I make whatever choice will benefit me. But he can't take any of that back.
Right. I have no problem
and
with
he just
men
collapses.
Showing feelings. But if you have built your whole sense of self and your whole sense of what status you deserve on being so cutthroat and strong, and you still actually aren't, then yeah, that is off-putting. It's like, what are you bringing to the table then? You're just an asshole. You're literally just a fragile asshole.
So
he sends himself home.
I was so happy. I was praying every episode for him to go home since episode 1.
Oh, he's the worst.
Episode 2 made me like ill.
So in episode 2, Irina from Love is Blind
poor Irina. She's just really
a target.
She's just really off-putting, and she really tried not to be, and she still was.
Yeah, it's hard. They show a couple comments that people didn't like or jokes that people didn't think landed. And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't seem so bad to me. It seems more like
I agree.
Like
I don't think she did anything so wrong. I think she wasn't good at challenges. Her team picked up on the fact that she like didn't have any real confidence in herself and her own skills, and she also like repeatedly got in the way of them excelling at challenges, and they had to make up for her. So there's like that element. And then also there were enough people in the larger group that were just like, I don't think they hated her, but they were like not obsessed with her. She was not
kind of a tough
unhateable. Hang.
Yeah.
She's a little bit of a tough hang.
She's not
even though
you
could tell, you could tell that she was like trying not to do it. I think she was very conscious of what happened to her the last time she was on television.
Well, and last time we saw her we saw her form a close friendship that was at least partially predicated on
being mean
to other people outside of the friendship. She wasn't doing that, but it just seems like she has like kind of a sharp-edged sense of humor. And the reality is that I think most people don't actually like to be ribbed that way by people that they are not super close with. And Irina just isn't someone that they want to hear it from.
Right. And also it's like so early on, she like didn't have the connections to kind of back it up. So everyone, including her own teammates, like agreed to vote for her. So, and no one tells her.
Yeah, like she keeps really asking them about the votes, and they're like, yeah, I don't know. We were thinking maybe that guy or the other guy. And she's like, okay.
And she clearly has an inkling.
But she doesn't have an inkling that all 11 of the other contestants are going to vote against her. Like, it's obvious that even her entire team has voted against her.
I mean, she ends up with 13. Like, her name on the wheel 13 times. And she, like, ends up, like, on her knees sobbing.
Yeah. I mean, it's brutal. And it feels and is it's very personal.
It's very personal. And she turns around to her team and she's like, I understand. I'm so sorry that I let you guys down. You could have just told me. And then her whole team is like, feels horrific. And they all start sobbing. It's like so sad. I couldn't
Yeah,
handle it.
I cried a little bit. It was really like gutting. That was almost the, and there are a lot of physical challenges that were
No,
upsetting for me to watch. This was
that
like
was the
really
worst.
hard to
For
watch.
me, that was the worst thing. It was very triggering.
Yeah, it was. And no one feel like they all want her gone, but they don't actually want to see the consequence of that to her. Like it's hard to see how upset she is.
And her
And
team afterwards seems to feel like maybe we did the wrong thing. Like Gabby
Yeah.
has like a full mental breakdown.
yeah. But like there continue to be these tensions where people want to feel safe with their team, but they also want a strong team. And they also know that eventually, as there always is, there's going to be an individual element. They're going to be broken
Right.
up. So they're also thinking about who's going to be a
Who do
risk
I
to
want to
them
be
down
in the final
line.
with?
And so there continue to be these temptations to undermine your teammates or to vote against them. I thought also the sort of head to head between QT and Avery was tough to
Oh.
watch.
Avery, I did not.
Avery from The Mole, I think,
Yeah.
really sees herself as like a tough gamer. She's strong. She's played strategy games. And she was on the team that won like almost all the challenges, which was sort of annoying. Like that there was this one team that kept winning challenges, and then it snowballs because there's trust on the team. They're not introducing a new person every time. They're not doing punishments. So they're just in better shape, and they're doing really well at the challenges, and they keep winning, and they never are up for elimination. But then finally the time comes when they're going to be vulnerable. And Avery goes after her teammate QT, who is from the circle.
This was such a bad move.
It was
QT,
dumb.
and here's the thing. If you are good at the circle, you are very good at social gaming.
Yeah. A lot of these strategy game players, I'm like, I know there's a social component to these games, so why are you so bad at it? Like a lot of them don't seem to understand how off-putting it will be if people
Right.
see them as willing to turn on a teammate, if people see them as scheming. They're willing to show their hand a little bit too much to cut
I
deals.
feel like the thing that I learned from this show is that the people on Too Hot to Handle are good in every setting. Like truly,
it's kind of unsettling.
It's kind of insane. Like they're hot enough to be on Too Hot to Handle. They also kill on a show like Perfect Match, and they're amazing at Battle Camp.
Well, they're all incredibly, either the men
Fit.
are all like former pro athletes
Yeah.
and the women all clearly do Pilates like every day. They're fit. They're usually super easygoing. They're accustomed to people wanting their approval, and people
Also
wanna give
they're
them their
gorgeous,
approval.
which, as we know, like there have been studies, people imbue positive qualities on good looking people.
Yeah. And the reality is, if you have a lot of these qualities, strategy actually is maybe the least important component of the game, because
Right.
if you're
And
likable and you're coasting along, you're not likely to get targeted. People won't
especially
see
if
you
you're
as a
also good
threat.
at the challenges and you're like helping your teammates.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Sometimes people want to target people who are good at the challenges.
That's true. But it is
But-
interesting how the people on like Too Hot to Handle, but also the circle do really well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that Avery is obsessed with not wanting to show her strengths. Like, I don't want to do well in this physical challenge because then people will know I'm strong. Even though I'm this like hot blonde, I'm also so strong. And I don't want people to know. So maybe I'll just fail the challenge. Whoops, I couldn't. I won the challenge. And, or the punishment, I guess. And Avery ends up messing up by showing her strategic side too much. Like, people are thrown by how cutthroat she is, and they're really
it makes
threatened by
sense.
that. So they end up having this challenge where you have to do like spell words while you're sitting on one of those like giant blow up things in a lake where they, someone jumps on the other side and it throws you into the air. If you spell the word wrong, you get jettisoned into the air, and also your team doesn't get a point. The jettisoning thing seems I guess just to add a little extra stress to people who don't like the idea of being thrown into the air into a body of water. And Avery considers messing up her word to look weaker and protect herself because they might think that she's not a good player and I'm like, you're not fooling anyone. Like, everyone knows what you're capable
everyone
of.
knows. Everyone knows immediately. Like,
and it would be so obvious what you were doing.
Right.
But ultimately she doesn't. She spells the word right. And then QT messes up her word. And QT is always talking about how much she loves to read. She wants to open a bookstore. She reads 100 books a year.
Spelling bees are really like nerve-wracking. And sometimes you just make,
Yeah. I will say that
mistakes.
It was hard for me to, when they started announcing the words, I was like, is this a fucking joke? Like, these are supposed to be hard challenges. But I guess the hard part is that you might get thrown in the air because some of these words were like, okay, listen, I was a spelling bee champ. I was third regionally in high school. In middle school. So it was hard for me to understand how a spelling knife could be considered challenging. But
that, you know what? I think here's the thing, Claire.
We're all different. We all have different strengths.
Everyone in this cast reads books, okay?
And also, let's be honest, if I had to dangle by my hands from a pole, I would be off of that pole in like 5 seconds. And they would be like, wow, Claire didn't even try. And I'd be like, no, I tried so hard, you guys. That was the best I could do.
This would be the one challenge I would thrive at.
Yeah, but QT gets stressed. She messes up advantage, which is her word. And Avery immediately assumes that she did it on purpose to seem dumb.
Like, Avery, no, that's just you.
That's just you, babe. Like, she messed up. And also, like, it's not such a big deal. Like, it's worse to have that smear on you of being someone who is campaigning against your own teammate than it is to let QT get through another week having maybe tried to throw the competition. Like, that looked worse on her, especially to me as like the hot blonde girl sneaking around talking shit about one of the only women of color in the game who is her teammate based on something she made up in her head.
No, it was low-key crazy.
And she's even like kind of snarky and rude to QT during the wheel when all their votes are getting put up.
I did not care for Avery. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but she ends up going home well before QT, who makes it to finals. So thanks to the wheel, it knows what is best. The wheel is wise.
The wheel is my god. I worship the wheel and I trust it implicitly.
The wheel's ways are not our ways, but they are what matters.
Should we talk about Trey, who is he was beloved, I think, on Squid Game. He's the one who played with his mom.
And ended up eliminating her, apparently.
I know. He's vicious.
I liked Trey.
I liked Trey on Squid, like the bit of Squid Game that I saw.
I did not watch Squid Game, so I had no context for Trey or Lorenzo.
I watched like one episode, but I liked him and his mom. And so then I just Googled like what happened to them specifically. I liked their vibes.
Well, I think that something about these contexts is that they are all hot reality stars, and then there are some people like gamers like Trey sometimes come from less of like an Instagram influencer background. But to a lot of us watching, we're like, he seems the most like someone that I would hang out with. Like, he seems more likable to me than like Chase.
He's cute.
Like,
yeah,
he's cute. That's the thing. And at some point, I realized that a lot of them didn't see him that way. Like, that they didn't see him as, like, handsome or likable as the others.
I also
and I was
think
like, oh.
that the fact that he undermined Louis, who was, like, not only his best friend, but also Louis is someone that I think people instinctively liked.
Yeah, including Trey. And so I think that what we've been discussing with sometimes the gamers showing their strategy too much and it ends up backfiring on them. I think that's what happened with Trey.
100%.
But the way that it gets turned into this moral judgment that extends through the rest of the season, I thought was really excessive. And it ended up making me root for Trey.
I know.
So basically what happens, just to lay out like the broad strokes, is that he is really worried that he and his bestie Louis are going to be targeted to be on the wheel. He's already on the wheel a couple times, and he goes to Polly, and she admits that she's planning to vote for one of the two of them. And he's like, well, can you just vote for Louis instead of me?
Polly from Selling the OC, of
Right.
course.
And she does vote for Louis, but she also tells everyone. And one thing I thought was crazy is that there was no blowback for her, even though
No,
I was like,
what's
you cut a
amazing-
deal with him and then you told everyone about it. So now I'm thinking you're not super trustworthy.
I'm just obsessed with the fact that Polly is so consistent of a character, like from
Yeah.
Selling the OC.
That's just
Like
who she
she's
is,
out
baby.
here just like gossiping.
She is messy as fuck.
She's so messy.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by the fact that no one, and like the way that it spread around camp, it ended up becoming much worse than it was, which I also winced when he did that. I was like, that's your bestie. You can just be like, you can try to sell her on a third person, or you can be
Right.
like, I don't think either of us should be on the wheel. But I do understand trying to nudge her away from putting you on the wheel. It only takes one time, to get eliminated, as we know. You only need one slot on the wheel. That's what happens to Gabby.
I was going to say, as Gabby learns.
Yeah. But what ends up spreading around is that he like campaigned against Louis, that he tried to whip votes against Louis, that he voted for Louis. And none of that is true. And this turns into everyone
It's rough.
viewing him as this kind of fundamentally untrustworthy backstabber.
But I think you're right in that he doesn't have the social skills to combat this.
Yeah.
And like Polly does, to be honest.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing, too, is that Louis was his like social anchor. They had a really strong alliance and friendship. And sure, he saves himself maybe by getting Louis on the wheel instead because Louis goes home. But that destroys his social game.
Yeah. No, it was a very short-sighted move.
Yeah. But this somehow continues through the end of the season, even when everything is reorganized. Basically, with a few episodes left, they bring in Chase from Too Hot to Handle and Kyle from QT Season of the Circle to split them into two teams, each one of them as captain, and they pick from
And Chase
the
comes
cast.
off much better on this show than he did on Perfect Match.
Oh, he still pisses me off. Oh,
I mean,
makes me
he's still
so annoyed.
Chase.
I mean, because his thing becomes, oh, I don't trust Trey. And Trey is on his team. But he hears about everything that happened and very quickly is like, I would never do that. I would never turn on my friend. Like, I just don't trust people like that. And he tries to almost use Trey to do well in the challenges, but then completely ice him out, even of like social conversation among the team, and definitely out of strategy. And so the other team senses weakness. They go after an alliance with Trey. Trey's own team votes against him, and the other team doesn't. But then they don't get Trey out, and they don't get Chase out. They're both still there, going head to head. And so Kyle tries to keep Trey in the alliance and asks him to throw the next challenge so that they can have control. But Trey's like, well, your team has lost a lot of people because you keep losing challenges, and there's more advantage to me in trying to perform really well and maybe reconcile with my team. And so then Kyle is like, well, now you've double-crossed me. You've betrayed me. And he goes hard against Trey. The whole team that Trey's on decides to vote against Kyle this time because Kyle's acting erratic and like they want him out. But Kyle and Chase are like besties because they came in together and they're just two buff
Macho
men.
dudes.
There's this really funny scene that kind of crystallized my realization that Trey is not treated as like, and doesn't see himself as being similar to the other men in camp. He's like, I just hate seeing like two attractive men laughing about having power. And he's watching Kyle and Chase, and he knows that they're scheming about taking him down, which is exactly what's happening. And Chase doesn't want to vote for his bestie, Kyle, so he ends up voting for Trey, I believe. Or at least not for Kyle. So this is all in service of Chase continuing to be like, well, I would never vote for my best friend. I would never do that. And he doubles down on that to the end. He's like, you voted for your best friend. I would never do that. And turns it into this whole like moral thing. But like in the end, he had to make a choice to do two of the things he said he would never do, which is go against the team and betray the team, or go against his best friend in the game. And it's like the game makes
those
you
were the choices.
make tough choices.
Everyone is morally compromised at battle camp.
It's so annoying to talk about because like it's so complicated.
I know
to describe.
No, it's completely insane.
But I found the way that Chase like became so belligerent with Trey about how he's like a better person than him really off-putting.
Well, you do see different ways in which masculinity is wielded, and you see the way that someone like Trey might start to feel resentment towards a certain brand of masculinity.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you point that out, because I thought that the way that gender is incorporated into how people make their strategies was very interesting. And like, this is the case with a lot of competition shows that we have watched, and I'm sure that it's across categories, but this like cutthroat model, it really pushes people to kind of dispense with the niceties. They're more honest about how they see each other. And they often are relying on certain prejudices and mental shortcuts, many of which are around gender. Like, when I see this person, what do I automatically think their capabilities will be?
Oh,
and
yeah.
what do I think their weaknesses will be?
There is so much discussion of women specifically as being like mentally weak.
It's kind of crazy. The assumption is always that, and this is, as you were pointing out, speaks to people's assumptions about Trey as well, that like the assumption is that big muscular men are strong in every way. They are strong physically, mentally, and strategically.
And then you see someone like Tony and you're like, you're a baby.
Yeah,
You're just a
mentally
muscly baby.
Exactly. And so like you have these big muscly men, everyone's looking at them and being like, he's a leader. I think he's the real strategic thinker. And I'm like, you think Louis is the real strategic thinker? Are you sure about that?
Like, we've all seen Too Hot to Handle. Chase and Louis are messy as fuck.
Yeah, Louis has a strategy for getting the bottoms off of the nearest hot woman he sees.
And
that's what he has a strategy for.
Louis is more charming than Chase, for me personally.
I like Louis, but like the assumption is always like, that man is tall. He has broad shoulders. He is a strategist. He will lead us to victory. And the assumption is conversely that women are weak physically and strategically.
Right. Even someone
mentally.
like Lexi, who is clearly physically capable and also mentally capable. It's like she messes up one challenge and she's a weak link. Irina, they're constantly talking about how she is like mentally weak.
I will say that she is mentally weak.
She is also
because she's a bad example because she is mentally weak because she refused to make the decisions in that challenge, and then once she was doing badly,
she was like, "I should have done that."
She was like, "I should have done." Like, no one needs to hear that right now, Irina. Like, suck it up. But
you know what? You're right.
But this is a lot of times the women aren't even in these conversations about who's a threat. And if they are in the conversation about who's a threat, they're often being ranked below men for no clear reason. And no one talks about like Georgia's mental. Georgia is fucking scary. She is tough.
She's amazing.
And everyone likes her. I would be the most threatened by Georgia out of everyone.
That's the thing. I'm like, there's a reason that she excels on every show she's on. Every single one.
She has been through the Too Hot to Handle and the Perfect Match ringer.
She is
perfectly
charming as fuck.
She's
stunning. She's extremely athletic.
And like she conveys very effectively that she genuinely wants the best for everyone while still making tough strategic decisions. That is brilliant. Hard.
She's very good.
I would
very
be the
good
most
at what she does.
But no one ever sees it coming. No one is ever like, Georgia's going to win that challenge. But she does win punishments. She does win challenges.
And in the finale, when there's like a bunch of chances to get your name on the wheel by winning challenges because the final winner is determined by a spin, she does really fucking well.
Yeah. Except for in the most terrifying heights one.
That
But
she's just like, I'm out.
she's
She
just like,
takes herself
absolutely not.
out. It's not that like she loses, really.
She forfeits,
She's just,
really.
She forfeits, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they all have their challenges that they don't do well on, but overall, I was the most terrified of Georgia, and I would definitely not want to go up against her, but they never see that coming. And even when they have like a wall climbing challenge, Morgan, who is from Cheer, and she's like a tiny and agile gymnast, someone who might be really good at like, I don't know, climbing up a wall quickly. No one thinks she's going to do well against like the hulking giant man that she's opposite.
You're like, have you seen Cheer? Have you seen those flips?
She-
My God.
She literally
those
goes up
lifts.
high in the air and does like agility tumbles in the air, and you don't think she can climb a wall quickly? Based on what? They don't expect it. They're always like, he just lost against the smallest woman here. Yeah, she's really strong and she's good at climbing walls. Like, why
She's
wouldn't
like
she be?
a professional level gymnast. You,
So you see how these-
absolute moron.
But women can benefit from this. Like Georgia, they fly under the radar because
I know,
no one
and I
thinks that they're a
did
threat.
Personally love that for Georgia because I
too.
too am charmed by her. So
I love Georgia. She's like
I-
my favorite too hot to handle person.
Same.
maybe.
I absolutely love her. I've loved her on every show she's been on. So in the finale, we end up with Shuby from The Circle, Georgia, of course, Polly from Selling the OC, QT from The Circle, Chase, and Lorenzo from Squid Game,
Yeah.
who was
and-
the only one that I was like unfamiliar with.
But I ended up liking him because if you have,
I really liked him.
especially if you have an anchor to someone else that someone really likes, they will like you too. And he and Georgia are attached at the hip. And so I very quickly became emotionally attached
Same.
to Lorenzo. Like when they have that challenge and she says that Tony is the best ally because she thinks Tony will insist on taking that one. And they all agree that she would surely say Lorenzo. And she's so heartbroken. She's like,
crying
I
afterwards.
want him to know how much I trust him. Like,
But
I
again,
hope
she is so good at forming real connections that like that doesn't hurt her because Lorenzo's like, oh yeah, I get it. You assumed Tony would strong arm me. Like,
Yeah, which
fuck
is
that
literally
guy.
what happened with the previous question,
Right.
About which person she found most attractive. But yeah, I liked Lorenzo. It was a good final batch.
it was a good final
finale.
crew. I liked that there was like a spread of shows and a spread of kinds of people. And
Shoe Bomb sneaking under the radar again, too, like all the way to the end, despite being terrible about all the physical challenges. And of course, like at the end, the wheel of misfortune turns into the wheel that will choose the winner. They all do a final series of challenges to try to get slots on the wheel. They vote for a person that they would like to see win. And ultimately, it's Lorenzo.
I was happy. I liked this outcome. I was happy to see Lorenzo win. And I was also thought it was kind of lovely that like everyone ends up getting a vote from someone else. They sort of pair up.
Even
It's,
Polly
like, very-
cuts a deal with Chase. It's just like, listen, we'd all like to see our name up there, right? I'll vote for you. You vote for me. And he's like,
And
sure.
and I feel like they're all like, okay, that's fair. We're
Yeah.
leaving it up to God. Sorry, I mean the wheel.
The wheel knows. And I felt honestly that it should be Lorenzo or Georgia,
Or Georgia,
based
I
on
agree.
how many challenges they won at the end. And also their strong social game, and also just like Chase just really pisses me off.
Oh, I know.
really liked
Also, Chase
QT,
came
but
in halfway
unfortunately she didn't get
through.
as many. Yeah, he didn't.
I mean-
he wasn't there. He doesn't know.
I know. I always like on something like this when it's one of like the OGs and like
Yeah.
Shuby, Georgia, QT, and Lorenzo were all there from day one.
Yeah. Yeah, I really felt for Polly and QT were struggling to get challenge wins up on the board.
I was
but-
like relatable queens.
yeah,
I would be
seriously.
terrible at this game.
I know, but it felt right that Lorenzo would win. And ultimately, I was surprised by how invested I got in this show.
Same. I think here's the thing. there were stakes to this show. It was produced in a way that was visually interesting, and they cast really compelling characters.
Yeah. And I do think that the wheel added a fun element of chaos that just like destabilized the strategy game a little
100%.
bit.
Yeah, it made it
I
less
found
of like
it more
a pure, cold-hearted strategy game and more of
Yeah.
just like a game.
And
Like, you
just-
can only do so much.
Exactly. And just from the anthropological perspective, I love watching people give
Form a new
human
religion?
feelings and thoughts. Form a new religion. Yeah. They're like, that wheel, that's God. So on that note, that's it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. This show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Ren Woods. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like the show, please follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, tell all your friends about our show.
If you want to get in touch and tell me how bad my audio and video were because I'm taping from London, I'm so sorry, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. You can find our newsletter, Rich Text, on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com.
I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey, Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Shook.
We'll be back soon.